what gave you the courage to ask?
The courage is that I don't want to work for anybody. Right? Really, honestly, that's the answer. I've worked for people many years, and I just thought, well, even if I struggle, the struggle is better than hitting a time clock.
Let's talk Tales. Today on Tales with Taylor, I'm with the creator and innovator who produces eye-catching timepieces that stand out in any space right here in Mesa, Arizona. Proudly holding licenses to Corvette, Chevrolet, Buick, Pontiac, and Oldsmobile, it's founder and CEO of Collectable Sign and Clock, having a little bit of moonshine with me today. It's Danny Broughton. How are you doing, Danny?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Gotta learn how to drink here.
That's
tell me, what makes this moonshine your favorite drink?
I'm not a big drinker.
Neither am I, as I spilled a little.
But, from my heritage, moonshine was sort of a natural thing for, my father was from Kentucky. I seen him drink moonshine out of an actual jar where the guy made it. And I don't know, I saw this in the store one time and I'm like, I'm getting some of that. And I actually like it. There's some beers I like, but this is pretty good stuff.
No, this is actually pretty good. And I'm actually more of a tequila drinker too.
I used to drink
anything
tequila.
That's a little more smoky, sometimes I'm not so into it. And this is Old Smoky.
This is Old Smoky apple pie moonshine. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
You definitely taste a little bit of that apple. That is delicious.
Yeah.
And so I have to thank you. So Danny here is the reason why we have this beautiful sign here, Tales with Taylor. So tell me, what made you originally get into clocks and signs?
My family is filled with people who like to come up with their own business. So I've been around it from day one. And so basically what that did was it hardwired me to look for an opportunity. And so one day I was on eBay and I bought a vintage clock that was from the 50s. And so I paid a lot of money for it, for what it was, about $350. And when it showed up, my wife looked at it and she's like, how much you pay for this? It's got a crack in the face. I said, well, $350, but I got a good deal because it had a crack. I mean, without the crack, it would have been a lot more. And so that kind of set off a light bulb, like, wow, why isn't anybody making these things brand new? That little conversation was the light bulb that made me look to see if anybody else was making these. Well, it turns out that the company who had made that particular clock, and then there was one other company, they had both gone out of business by like the mid 70s. And so I'm like, okay, well, it appears that nobody's making these. And then the mission became, well, how do I do this and then employ every bit of technology that I can? And so I started to look into manufacturing methods, and I started with something called vacuum forming, which for my product was a mistake.
What is vacuum forming? I'm so sorry.
Vacuum forming is where they take a sheet of plastic and they heat it up and they pull it down into a mold that is the shape of your product. And they pull all the air out and then they eject the part and then they trim off the side, and now you have a clock bottom and a lens. The problem was the clear outer lens, when you have a sheet of plastic and you heat it up, the ocular clarity kind of goes out the window. So we were throwing away a lot of parts that just were not up to standard. And that first year, we sold enough clocks to make us seem like this is a business that could work. But we had to solve the problem of throwing away so many parts, because when you actually figured it out that first year, we probably took a $5 loss on every clock because we were throwing so many parts away. So I thought, well, okay, if we can fix the manufacturing thing, this thing's got legs.
Right, that's a problem that you can actually solve,
Exactly. And this was all pre 2007 when the home market crashed. So our house was fat in value, and we were we had not borrowed against it other than a little bit to do the vacuum form molds. So I tapped back into it again, and then we built injection molds, which was the right thing to do at that time. And all these years later, 20 years later, it's still the right thing to do. Those molds are still working. We spent almost $100,000 on those 2 molds.
Wow.
But they have almost an unlimited capacity to make parts without degrading.
Nice.
So once we did that, everything fit together perfectly. We threw no parts away. We became instantly profitable. And so then it became, the next thing was, okay, now we have a product that works. Now we need to figure out what images can we put in it that would sell in the market. And then again, I go right back to eBay to see what the old stuff was. And in the old stuff, it was a lot of sodas and beers, and you can't sell beer stuff, and I wasn't interested in that anyway. But I thought, well, as a car guy, I know car guys, and they want their cars in a clock. I mean, that was my...
Well, yeah, you got to have your garage, your man cave, have your favorite car on there. And
Absolutely.
you have multiple licenses, which is excellent. What's your favorite, maybe not favorite license, but what's your favorite make and model?
Probably the Corvette, the Chevrolet Corvette. As somebody who raced for 26 years, and I raced against Corvettes.
Oh, wow.
For
legal racing or like a legal straight racing?
No. Out of Firebird, I had a car that I drag raced every weekend. I did that for 26 years. And matter of fact, the experience from that, it gave me the mechanical ability to kind of wade through the waters of dealing with mold makers and stuff like this. I kind of knew what they were talking about when they would. I would not portray that I knew what they were talking about because I'd let them think I was a sucker, and that's how I kind of.
Oh, it's like when I speak Spanish for a half second, then I'm like, oh shit, they think I know Spanish.
Yeah, right. So in that mold making process, I actually ran into a lot of guys that were sharks that were looking to take my money and not give me anything for it.
Okay.
But I got through that, and I found somebody local to make the molds. 2 old brothers from Detroit. Their father was in Detroit. He made parts for the automakers, and they moved out here in their retirement, and they made me the molds. They were great. And then once the parts came off, I mean, that problem went away. So now I'm like, well, I want to get, I thought I would go with Chevrolet as my first license. And I was interested in the Corvette. There was just a lot to work with there. And so I approached Chevrolet, and I spoke to one of their licensing sales reps. We put a deal together, and I think I've been a licensee with Chevrolet now for about 16, 17 years.
Wow. How do you get the courage? Some people are just so nervous of asking the question. Just like with you, I'm amazed that you're sitting here. We've done videos together, but by all means, you've never been on front of the camera. But you got to ask. So what gave you the courage to ask?
The courage is that I don't want to work for anybody. Right? Really, honestly, that's the answer. I've worked for people many years, and I just thought, well, even if I struggle, the struggle is better than hitting a time clock. So that's, and in the early days, I was working at a place.
Okay.
So the first, so I was working at a place, and this was sort of a part-time gig. The clocks, it was sort of a
side hustle.
Side hustle. I worked at a warehouse for a period of time. I also drove the gambling buses to Laughlin. I did that for a little bit.
Okay.
That was fun. And then once the clock business kind of got on its feet, and we got through some of the early struggles of what are we doing here, and then it started to take off.
Did you get killer tips when someone won big with the gambling? Sorry, I had to. My mind thought about that for a second.
Yeah, you're right. The bus would hold 52 people.
Okay.
And I just happened to kind of have a lead foot. So when I would drive to Laughlin, I usually got them there 30 minutes earlier than other drivers.
Well, there you go.
And that was good for a couple dollars tips from every person. So, that's typically $7,500 on the way up. And then on your way back, the winners would usually tip you nice. Yeah. And then the people who lost, they would do what they could, because a lot of these folks were weekly regulars, exactly. So, they were regulars. So yeah, and I learned to play craps by doing that.
I was about to ask, did you get him?
I did.
No?
So my obligation was that you drive them up there,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're supposed to sleep for 8 hours, and then after 8 hours you drive them back. But there was a period of time there before you had to go to sleep, and then afterwards where you could. There was probably an hour where you could eat and relax. And so I took crap lessons up there, which were free. And then eventually I developed the rule where I would gamble $20.
Mm-hmm.
And if I lost it, I'm done. But if I won, then I would stop in 20 minutes. So
Okay,
$20
nice.
or 20 minutes. And that really served me well.
I love that. I've done the $20 thing, but I like the whole $20 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I used to then be like, okay, I'm going to play off my winnings until
Right.
the winnings are gone. And then you're like, okay, I left with nothing. And so, yeah.
So I was pinched on time. So I'm like, okay, well, I
Yeah.
got to put a cap on this. So 20 minutes. The most I ever won in that 20 minutes was $450.
Hey, that's a
But
nice
I won
20 minutes.
$100 a bunch of times.
Okay.
And it's all from the lessons that I took in the Flamingo, which is right there in Laughlin. It's gone now, I think, actually.
Okay.
So that kind of set the hook in me for playing craps, and I like playing craps, and I read more about it and strategies and stuff. I don't get up there that often, but when I do go up there, I'm good for $100 at the table.
There
I
you
walk
go.
right up and
You worked up from 20 to 100.
yeah,
then,
see
right?
what happens. I mean, it's either going to hit or it's not going to hit, and
at least it's one of those games that you kind of have fun with. You know, that's
Right.
one of those things. I don't like doing slots because all I'm doing is one of
yeah,
these.
you're not in charge of your future there.
No, that's why I'll play fantasy football because I get to choose. I get to draft. I
Yeah,
get to put in
yeah.
my lineup. You know, I get a little bit of the gambling.
Exactly.
Involved. I get to be part of it. So yeah, craps. You get to be part of it.
You got to know what you're doing with craps. So
Yeah.
you can have your $100 gone in a few throws of the dice, or you can be there an hour later.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of interesting. I don't want to say famous people because you might ask me their names, but I don't remember them all. But I've run into some famous people at the crap table,
All right.
and that's
Well, they definitely have some disposable income.
yes,
so.
they do. Yeah.
That's for sure.
So-
Now back to your signing clock. So you were able to get those licenses, but beyond that, you're able to help businesses and organizations and shows get custom clocks. So what made you go into that transition of start offering custom?
It was by accident. It was actually by accident. I had a company reach out to me, and I had no advertisement out or anything. I don't know where exactly they saw me, but they reached out to me and they said, we have an ad budget where we put an ad out every month, and it was a pretty good budget. It was $5,000-$10,000, whatever it was. It is a big company. And they said, what we'd like to do is we'd like to order some clocks from you, and then give a clock away for everybody who orders a certain amount of stuff. And so I said, I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's play. So we got them happy with the art, and they ordered 100 clocks as a beginning, and they put the ad out, and then the ad wasn't out more than 2 or 3 days, and they said, hey, we need to get a whole lot more clocks, like 500 more.
Excellent problem.
Yeah, excellent problem. So at that time, I wasn't as streamlined about doing this as I am now, but we made more clocks, and then at the end of all that, they were very happy. They had a lot of business, and they had the clock obviously was their logo, and the clocks don't really degrade. They're gonna wherever somebody puts one of these clocks up, it's gonna be there 20 years from now. So now they've got 600 clocks out in the world with their name, their website, their phone number, in garages of their best customers. And so, I mean, how is that?
That's amazing. Did you create the artwork, or does the client have to provide you the artwork?
So he provided me the artwork, but it was their T-shirt art that we adjusted slightly. We added the website, we added a phone number for ordering. So
clients can send you files, and then you will
Yes.
make it fit within the clock?
And now we have on our website, we have a place for businesses or private people. They can upload their art. And we have an FTP site where they can upload high resolution art. And then there's a little questionnaire at the end where we ask them what do they want in the clock. And then we send them a free simulation based on those answers to those questions. And then once they see the art, they can order as many as they want. And of course, the more you order, the cheaper it gets.
Does it have to be a fleet of clocks, like 100? Or if I wanted to have my kids make a clock for their grandparents, can my kids have a clock that we send to the grandparents?
We can make as few as one clock. Yeah, you can
That's
make as few as
amazing.
one. And we have a lot of customers, car guys that order a clock with their car on it.
Nice.
We also have businesses that order one clock. We're actually, and so that experience with that automotive company, the automotive parts company years ago, that was the eye opener. And since from then to now, we sort of put the infrastructure in place where the customer experience is easy.
Yeah.
Where-
And that's amazing that you can just buy one, because there's so many promotional companies. You
Right.
know, if I ask for a t-shirt or I
Yes.
ask for a water bottle, they're like, well, you have to buy 250. And I'm like, I don't need 250 water bottles. Like, you know, maybe 50 we'll talk. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
excellent.
we can make one. I'm basically big enough now that we're printing every week. We're printing clock faces every week. So what we do is if we have a custom, we just include it in with the print. And then,
And where are they being printed? Are they in China somewhere?
oh, no. Everything's right here in Phoenix.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about support local.
Yeah. So my mold makers were here. My plastic parts makers are here in town. And I have switched to different print shops over the years based on, circumstance or whatever comes up. But I'm at a shop right now that's local.
Nice.
They do an excellent job. And the interesting thing is when you go into a print shop and you show them what I'm printing, print shops are used to going out and having to get new business all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a rare occasion where I'm going to be bringing you business every week. You don't have to find me again. Let's work out our deal.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time the deal, we don't hassle over the numbers because I offer them a number, which is when you base it on the square footage of whatever's being printed, I'm paying a premium.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm really paying for here is the service. I want you to turn this around in a week or less.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm paying for. And so once we kind of get past that, which I've never had any problem getting past, it's just that they're not aware of it.
Yeah.
And so then, I'm print and they get it back to me in a week, which is a nice turnaround for customers that order custom stuff.
Yeah.
And we can print as few as one. So
That's such an amazing opportunity, not just for businesses and organizations who want to brand themselves in their offices or give gifts to their clients, but just for those gifts for families. Like I know, throughout the years, having those personalized gifts have become so much more important to me than, the thing you could buy at Amazon, like
the generic
else.
stuff.
The generic stuff. Yeah. It's just something about that personal touch.
It's just a few months ago, I had an artist in Scottsdale who is a Western artist. He's a renowned Western artist. And he has some stores in Wyoming and a few towns.
Other Western-like places.
Yeah. And he sells a lot of posters and a lot of stuff. He's a pretty renowned artist. And his brother called me up one day and said, hey, what would it take to make some clocks? So I threw him some numbers. He's like, wow, this works.
You're very affordable, I will say.
And so he has been reordering now for a few months.
Nice.
I mean, he's not burying me in orders, but every couple of weeks I get an email with hey, let's do another dozen or 2 dozen or whatever. And he's just, and as we come into the Christmas time, those numbers are just going to go up. So the lesson from that is, and I've learned this kind of the hard way throughout these 20 years of being in business, is I'm probably not going to find one customer that buries me in orders.
Right.
I find a whole bunch of little guys who just keep consistently throwing orders at me.
Well, it's always best to just keep those clients happy because it's way more expensive and time consuming to find new customers and clients than it is to keep the ones. And if they are going to come at the, once a quarter or a couple times a year, that's so nice just to have that. And then I'm sure you're able to better predict and look at your numbers and things of that sort, because you definitely have a scenario. Like, do you have inventory or is everything kind of done as it's needed?
So in the early days, my first graphics person I hired was a high school kid that lived in my neighborhood, and his name was Sean. And Sean, if you see this, you are an awesome dude, man. I totally appreciate everything you've ever done for me. So one day, Sean ended up going to college to be a computer systems engineer.
Okay.
And probably a couple of years into that, he comes in one day to work and he says, you know what I figured out in school today? I figured out that your manufacturing type is the same as what Toyota does, which is manufacture in time.
Okay, just-in-time manufacturing.
Just-in-time manufacturing. I said, wow, did they steal my idea? and for me, it was just the common sense of this is the right way to do it.
Yeah, because that's what I always thought about, companies and organizations that have products. I just feel like, the mountain of inventory, but unless you do just-in-time manufacturing.
Yes.
For those who are watching and maybe learning about how to start their own business, what is just-in-time manufacturing?
So when you look at all the clocks, they are literally all the same except for the image in the face. So we maintain an inventory of clock faces, and typically anywhere, depending on the season, 500 to 1,000 of those things are sitting around. Okay, and they're ready to go. They have a little pre-assembly that has to be done, but it's literally under a minute. It's very quick. And then the other thing we inventory are clock faces. And depending on how much volume that clock face has in sales, I could have anywhere from 4 to 2 dozen on the shelf. And so at the end of every week, I do inventory, and anything that's low, and I sort of have a trigger point for those clock faces that, and this, I just learned this through the hard way of like running out of stuff. If anything gets too low, I add it to the list, and then it gets printed at the end of the week. So I keep my inventory at a level on everything that is going to allow me to get through, sales surges. And so in the early days, I occasionally ran out of stuff. I think the last 3 Christmases, I haven't run out of anything, which to me, that's the victory.
That's really good. Because I know when I was a manager at a restaurant, and if I forgot to put that produce order in, it was like, we got to go to the grocery store and spend premium price on tomatoes.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah.
So that print on demand, and the fact that I have to deal with the printers, they print once a week, and allows me to figure out whatever's low in inventory, and I'll restock. And then, of course, as we get closer to Christmas, with this much experience, I know which designs need to be boosted in inventory. Pretty much all the Corvette stuff will have to go up.
Gosh, those new Corvettes are so gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I think I don't know if I'm the only one, but when the C8 Corvette came out, it was just a few months before that. My license was coming up due. They usually only make the license good for 3 years. So every 3 years you have to renew it. And so I just got the license renewed. And then, of course, at the end there, I sent them an email. Do you think that we could include the C8? Could we add C8 Corvette to my license? And I got a yes.
Nice.
I got a yes. And so one of my vendors who sells a lot of stuff, I mean, not just my clocks, he sells other clocks and other things and lots of stuff. And he's a Corvette catalog company.
Okay.
And he told me, he says, good for you, because I know other clock companies that did not get this.
Wow.
I'm like, all right, well.
But the power of the ask, and then just you having a good reputation. I think,
and a good product,
I think,
yeah, is what's carried me through the day.
The reputation, the product, the fact that you're a nice guy to even talk to and deal with, I'm sure it makes it simpler too. So that's definitely amazing. So you mentioned vendors. So what's the benefit and advantage of using vendors for your business?
Well, to have a candid moment, the vendors were to make up for what I'm not good at. And what I mean by that is I'm pretty decent at coming up with a way to manufacture something, but I was not good at being on eBay, Amazon, Target, Walmart, Etsy, all these places. That was I just didn't like doing it.
It's cumbersome.
It is cumbersome, and there's just a lot to deal with. So I thought, well, if I can come up with a price structure that I can have a vendor group that sell at those places and then give them a strong profit, then that will resolve the issue for me. Okay, so that's how I did, and that was actually completely by accident.
But that's genius, because it is a matter of, no matter what the business is, it's about staying in your center of genius, and then whom can you bring in to your team in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
And so the first company that I called, which was a die-cast company, and they had a very nice website, and I called them, and I got the guy on the phone, and I said, hey, I make these clocks. Would you be interested in selling these car-themed clocks on your diecast website? And he says, yeah, give me a minute. So he looked it up. He says, and within 30 seconds, I had a hard yes.
Okay.
And he says, well, how much do I make? So I sent him over the email. We talked about it, and he's making a good margin. And I think almost all my vendors have all been my vendors for more than 10 years now.
How do you vet a vendor?
So I do have a way now. I didn't really have that in the beginning, and it did create some issues.
Okay.
So now most of the vendors, they want to sell on Amazon, and I don't limit them. I say, I don't care where you sell, really, as long as you adhere to my MAP pricing policy. Mm-hmm. And then, so usually the first email is they'll send me an email, hey, I like your clocks. Could we figure something out? And then I have sort of the standard email I send them back. It is, yes, give me your contact information, the platforms you want to sell on, and send me links to products that you're already selling. Mm-hmm. And what I'm looking for is I want to make sure that they're an ethical vendor. You know, they're doing everything they should be doing. I want to make sure that they're filling the orders, they're sticking to MAP. And actually a strange thing is they have to have a credit card on file. And out of all the things that could kick this out, that I've, satisfied all those requirements, the credit card on file for some of these guys has been a no.
Really?
Some of them want to operate on 30 or 60 days. And it's like, all right, that's
so annoying.
You're getting paid instantly.
Yeah.
And so it just is a clue to me that maybe they don't have the cash flow. So I usually, I don't yield on that.
Yeah, because they're not a government entity, so they don't have that excuse. Because government entities, they have that excuse for some reason, even though they have the budget, but we still have to wait to 60 days.
I have given terms to some drop shippers. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the National Corvette Museum carries my clocks in the thing, and it's easier for them as a big organization. Having terms just so they can turn it around. So we negotiated terms and we came together, and I've been in there now for like 4 or 5 years, and they sell a lot of clocks. They sell a lot of personalized clocks. So guys will come in, there's some clocks on the wall in there. Mm-hmm. So guys will come in and they'll see one of the samples where they can put their name on it. Mm. And that sells a lot of clocks.
Yeah, seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing. That's like, okay, well, here's, I can get a lighted clock for my C6, C7, whatever car they have. We have them all. And then it's got my name on it. Joe Smith, Corvette Garage. Yeah. That's kind of a thing for the guys. So we sell a lot of those for those people. And we offer that for everybody, but the Corvette Museum probably sells more than anybody.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's definitely a good person or organization to connect with, for sure.
And again, it's about having all these little niches, and all these niches, when you put them all together, equal, selling clocks.
Riches are in the niches, they say.
It really is, yeah.
Riches are in the niches. So that's amazing. And, one thing that I really love about you is your relationship with your wife. Like every time I've come into your home, I just feel the love. Yeah. And being a business owner is a tough deal. Like there's always, there's long hours sometimes, there's a lot to starting a business, especially the beginning. Oh, yeah. What are some, recommendations to people who maybe are starting a business to then still have that like strong relationship?
Well, now, yes, we have a rock solid relationship for sure. But there are definitely times that she rolls her eyes, for sure. And really, it's about issue management. There's definitely days things don't go smooth, and you just don't let it rile you.
Pick your battles.
You just deal with whatever the thing is. And one of my strengths is, I don't know if it's a strength. I think my kids would maybe call it something else. Whatever the problem is, I just try to get a hold of it, figure out what is the quickest solution, and get past it. And then I also manage things.
It's a very man thing to do, right? It
very much is.
It's a very man thing to do, to be like, what's the problem? Let's find a solution. Sometimes we're like, we just want to talk.
Yeah. And so, just getting past it. And then I also try to manage myself to avoid problems. Mm-hmm. In the very early days, I had no idea what licensing was. Mm. And I got kicked in the shins a little bit there. I got a couple of nasty emails that made me I better look into this. Yes. So I did. And I realized that I need to embrace licensing. Although my competitors were some were embracing licensing and some weren't. I basically only have two competitors: neon clocks and paper face clocks.
What are paper face clocks?
Just a clock that somebody will make on their printer at home. The guy might be a graphic design artist, and he'll come up with something, and he can buy a little kit where he takes that printed face, cuts it into a circle, and then puts it in a clock, and then puts it on eBay and sells it. Usually those.
That's not going to be quality.
Yeah, it's not. But I've seen a lot of those guys go out of business, and COVID wiped out a lot of those guys. As a matter of fact, COVID seemed to put a lot of the neon guys out of business. Not exactly sure why, because I don't do neon. But
well, I'm sure when you think, where do you see neon? I see neon outside of bars. I see neon outside of restaurants. That industry was really hurt during COVID. And so I can imagine maybe that was why.
In the neon clock world, there was a kit where you could just slide in whatever image you wanted. The problem with these neons, they were cheap from China. They kind of broke a lot in shipping, and so that, and then I think when COVID happened, a lot of their parts supplies, which came from China, I think the supply of parts was interrupted, and so a lot of those guys went out.
Yeah, supply chain was definitely an issue back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that they were all coming in from China, and I'm sure you might have been suggested in the past that why don't you manufacture in China? It's so cheaper. That's where everyone manufactures, it seems. Why do you feel so strong about keeping everything here local in Arizona, or at least here in the United States?
Because of control, the quality control is one huge thing. And I learned this back when I was making the molds. I went into three places to have my molds made, and they all gave. And keep in mind, I am clueless about molds. So when I go into these same places, and I kind of pitch them the idea, hey, I got a product, I want to make some molds. They all gave me exactly the same answer, all three places, and they all said it was going to be $50,000. We're going to send it over to China, and they all kind of gave me the same quick spiel. And at the end of the day, I sort of thought about that. I'm like, okay, I need to find a guy. Yeah. I need to find somebody here in town that I can draw this thing up on a napkin, and this guy's going to understand what I'm talking about. And eventually I did. I found the two brothers.
Nice.
And he's like, yeah, it's round. It's 3 inches deep. Yeah, we can figure this out. It's not that big of a deal. I'm like, all right, you're exactly.
Don't you love it when such complex things sound so simple to people?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And these other guys, they wanted me to have CAD drawings and all this stuff. I'm like, okay. I looked at that answer as a kind of a Band-Aid of they didn't really know what they were doing. They were just going to pass it off, and it was going to go to China. And then, so I eventually found what I needed to find. I found two guys here that did it, and they did great work. And 20 years later, here we are.
That's amazing. And Arizona, I find, is just so interesting in the small business world. I was actually doing an event with the Arizona Commerce Authority, and they said that 95% of the businesses in Arizona are small businesses.
Really? Wow.
95%. And when I started thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, my electrician, small business.
Right.
All these people whom I worked with, I'm like, that's a small business. That's a small business.
Right.
You're starting to do math. Other than fries, we use a lot of small businesses.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that we really pushed in the last year to try to get the infrastructure in place to have customers approach us with a custom clock, and we're doing custom work every week. It's just it could be more, and I always want it to be more.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we created the sign.
Yeah.
Which was basically, now you think that, it's the same thing, but I had to come up with a way to take out the clock motor.
Oh, really? That actually became an ordeal to take it out?
Well, the clock motor is a supporting structural member of the whole fixture. So by removing that, now you got to come up with another technique to hold it all together.
Interesting.
So I did figure it out, and in the end, looking back on it, it was easy. But, from no solution, trying to come up with a solution, I was like, oh, what are we going to do here?
That's why you're an innovator. You figure it out.
Well, it's all those years of drag race. My mom always told me that I'm never going to make any money drag racing. And she was right. But what she did not calculate was that the lessons learned from making my own stuff 100% helped me with the clocks and signs. And so yeah, talking to the machinist for the molds and all, I mean, I think that greatly carried the day for me and talking to those guys. So so we're just still trying to expand. I dug out an old license this week and it's still active, and we got some new art from the guy, and
nice.
And I submitted it, and we're trying new stuff all the time.
What's maybe the weirdest custom clock you've ever had to print, or have you ever had any kind of interesting weird clocks?
I did, yeah. There was a guy a little bit south of Black Canyon City. He just had a piece of land. I think he was right off the Highway 17. Mm-hmm. And he reaches out to me, and we chatted out a little bit. And he says, "All right, I'll send you the art." And when I get the art, I was kind of shocked in that it looked like maybe his kids had made it with melted crayons.
Okay.
And so I called him up, and I just to touch base. I'm like, "All right, I got this. It's okay. How many of these you want?" I think he ordered 3 or 4, whatever. It did not look like corporate art.
Right.
But that's okay. I also had probably the other strangest thing. So as far as art, that was...
Yeah, kids crayon. If it is a kids organization, maybe it works to have kid crayon drawings.
Maybe, yeah. One day I actually had Hustler magazine call me.
Okay.
And I'm like, and it was a lady in charge of their advertisement program. I don't remember her name, and she told me that she wanted to print some clocks for a contest. Okay. And I said, okay. And I gave her the web address. She was the FTP, and she was gonna upload the art. Now I'm expecting what you would expect from somebody mentioning the word Hustler magazine.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
It was not. Oh. It was not. And so after I received the art, she wanted me to call her back to make sure it was okay, of the right resolution, everything. And I said, yeah, we can make this work. We'll put some simulations together and we'll send you the simulations. I said, but quite frankly, being that you're Hustler magazine, I thought that this was going to be more of a hustler kind of stuff.
Yeah. Look, yeah.
And she goes, we really thought about that. And we decided that if a guy is going to be at a club, a strip club, mm-hmm. and win a contest, and now he's going to take this magazine or this clock home, he wants to be able to hang it up, and maybe it should not be so far as the magazine. I said, well, okay, at least you have a thought out strategy.
Yeah, because you can hide the magazines easier from the wife, but you can't hide
exactly. You're not going to put a lighted clock. Yeah. So anyway, that was kind of the the craziest
that's interesting
corporate phone call I ever got. I think we made them a couple of dozen, and then they did their contest, and I hadn't heard from them since.
And that was that.
And that was that. So, but that's okay.
That's cool. You can come back around.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
But now all magazines are gone. Playboy's gone.
Are they really? Are the magazines gone?
They're not gone. I just those kind of magazines I think are gone.
Really? It just all went online.
I think it's all internet now. So the ability to monetize images has changed. So.
Yeah, it's true. So I feel like with you and your business, and I know all the time people ask me about AI and is AI taking over, yada, yada. Yeah. I bet for you though, AI is just helping you. It's just helping you with your graphics. It's, because AI can't make a sign or a clock. It can't do what you do.
We have tried quite a bit to see what AI can do for us.
Yeah.
As far as graphics, we haven't found it to produce graphics yet.
Okay.
And maybe it could be the prompt we're not putting in correctly, but
it's funky. It's I feel like you have to be so exact with AI.
You really do.
You have to be, treat it like an alien that's just learning English. And
that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. It has helped with image enlarging. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the biggest problem when I have a customer that wants to do a custom clock, especially if it's a private person, is that the image they send over will not be high enough resolution. Mm-hmm. So using an AI service, we can upload their image and increase it. And prior to AI, we would
like even the DPI resolution it can help with, or
if you take it up slow,
okay,
yeah, and as long as you receive something that's maybe 96 to 100 DPI, and then you take it, you double
I feel like
that.
a lot of phones do like 72. And so that's the issue where I feel like a lot of people are trying to be like, oh, I took this great picture with my phone. Let's use it.
Yes.
And, yeah.
So the iPhone is kind of an interesting thing. iPhones take pictures at 72 DPI, but they take it at enormous. Like usually the picture size is 3 foot by 2 foot.
Yeah.
So if you pull that picture into Photoshop and you reduce the size down to maybe 10, 12 inches and increase the DPI from 72 to 300, that works.
Yeah.
That does work. Yeah. And prior to iPhones, what we would do is we would just take their picture and print it off. And then I have a high-res scanner that can go up to 2,500 dots per inch, and we just scan it in. It might take 20 minutes to scan it, but we scan it in.
Interesting.
And now we have our DPI we need
All right.
to print. So there's
always a workaround.
Always a workaround. There's always a workaround. And so, but the most convenient tool has been the AI, where you just online, right at your desk, you just throw it in, and it just, you can either 200% it or 400%. If you go right to 400, sometimes you're going to have some issues. So it's easier to just step it up a couple of bytes at a time. But so that's how we get around the.
Which software do you use?
Photoshop.
Oh, just the Photoshop AI?
No, actually, Photoshop for our image processing. But it's a version of ChatGTP for the enlarger. I actually bought into their service where I have access to the ChatGTP 4.0, and as part of that, you get the image enlarger and all that. So I don't know, for $20 a month, I'm in on all of it. So if I need something, it's just right there at the desk.
Yeah, ChatGPT has been such a good tool. Just a really good tool. I know we've been really using it and helping people condense their scripts. I'll get 1,000 words, and we're like, we want like 250.
Yeah.
So it's just it really does help out.
My last video with you, the script was written by ChatGPT.
Wow.
I remember sending you an email that said, what was the calculation of how many words per minute? And you answered me, whatever that was, I don't remember.
150 words per minute.
Okay. And I said, all right, we're looking for this long of a video. And so I plugged that in, and we kept playing with it, and it took a couple of rounds. And I don't know if that, I don't remember if that made the final cut or we ended up doing something else, but some version, I mean, it was helpful.
I feel like it was really close. Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of times with AI too, they use a lot of redundant words. And so it's like taking out some of those sometimes.
It does pack it with words.
It does.
It just loads it up.
They try to make like they pick every fancy marketing word and they throw it into that script. In the ever-evolving digital landscape. I swear, every single thing is the ever-evolving digital landscape.
Right. It's like, all right, man, just speak to me like you're talking to a high school grad or something.
Right. Yeah. It'll get there though, I'm sure. It's just amazing, even with, with images, take out this in the background or fix that, even just a few years ago, it'd, be funky sometimes. And now it's like amazing what it can do.
My longtime best artist I ever dealt with, a man named Rudy Edwards. And I lost Rudy this past year. And he had been my artist almost from day one, where he was creating automotive art for me. And then, but I remember a couple of years ago when AI came out, and I called Rudy up and I said, Rudy, are you familiar with AI art? And he had no idea about it. So I'd already been connected to a couple of websites, and I sent him over the links, and within weeks, he was creating AI art. So there's a trick to it. You got to have at least in his case, having an art background and knowing, where the lines in the sand are, good, bad, whatever. He was producing stuff, and it was interesting. He just sent me a bunch of wild stuff, like, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And I'm like, wow, if all we need is a customer that wants to buy this. So I said, we need to focus in on what the customers want.
Right.
And start with the customer. Who's our customer? And then backwards think it to what art do we want to put in a clock and sell to that customer? So he created a lot of stuff. I don't have that skill set. I don't. I need a guy like him. But now I'm dealing with his art lives on through my clocks with through his wife and son.
Nice.
And so I think we got together in, I think the first time would have been 2006 or 2007, quite a while. Yeah, we worked together a long time. Yeah, so his art is available, and we still get people that have the color of a car changed. Like, hey, can Rudy do this or can Rudy do that? Like, yeah, Rudy's not with us anymore.
Aww.
So I think we have a legacy of Rudy art that's probably, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 clock designs that are Rudy's art.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I've tried a lot of artists over the years, and his is the most sellable.
Yeah.
It really is. It just is. So we've tried other artists, and it's sort of a little flash in the pan in sales, but his every month, every year,
His art definitely.
it just works. Yeah, he is going to be impossible to replace.
Well, don't say that.
Yeah,
It's not impossible. There's always a way.
Yeah,
Just got to find the right person.
just got to find the right guy. So
Yeah.
we're trying to break into new stuff, try to sell custom clocks to cities where fire department cities and wherever they're remodeling, we throw in some bids to see if we can. It's a new thing for us. We have no results to speak of yet, but we're still trying to figure out the lay of the land. But if it works,
Yeah.
it has a huge upside.
Definitely. I can see like every, city official office and things like that having that in there. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
There is an army base in Washington that is about to be remodeled, and I signed up for the alert that these kind of alerts would show up to me, and so I'm preparing a bid. Or actually, it's sources sought, so it's not technically a bid, but it's an introduction. This is what we can do in your project, and then if they like what they see, then they would just order whatever they want. I've never done that before. It's been a long road to get to the moment where we could do this, but that's our next try.
This is Tales with Tailors. Sometimes we like to get a little punny. What's your favorite animal with a tail?
My favorite animal, it'd have to be my boxer dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little stump of a tail accounts.
Just a
little stump in there.
Little one inch tail. We have two boxers, Dolly and Lucy. We've had a lot of boxers over the years, in 20 years, 25 years. This time we decided to get a black and white boxer.
Oh, cute.
Which is kind of hard to find.
Okay, yeah.
And I ended up driving to California.
Wow.
Yeah, I drove to California to get this dog. And it was like an 11-hour drive or 9-10 hour, whatever it was. And
how did the dog handle the drive back?
well, I had a friend with me that held the dog.
Okay.
And so it was just 6-week-old little puppy.
Aww.
So we get her back, and she is so adorable. She is a great dog. So,
nice.
So that's my.
So why boxers? What do you think? What makes boxers so special? You feel?
Probably my mom and dad. The stories that I got from them before I was born. I have 4 older brothers and sisters, and they had boxers. And this one particular boxer they had, it was owned by a German couple. So the dog didn't understand or speak English.
Okay.
And so nobody could talk to it. And the dog apparently didn't like my dad.
Oh, no.
But he did like my mom. So when the 4 older kids would get off the bus, nobody would get off the bus until my 4 brothers and sisters got off the bus, because this boxer was sitting there to escort them home.
Oh, wow.
And so, the dog has just got endless tales of what it did in our family. And so bounce ahead to us looking for a dog. I'm like, let's get a boxer. And it's been the best thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, this has been so much fun, Danny. If you were to leave the audience with just like one bit of advice, and the audience here is going to be mostly business owners,
right,
or people who want to start their own business, what would be that one piece of advice you'd have for them?
A personal habit that I have has been very helpful over the years, in that once I decide a course of action, unless there's a financial reason to not move forward or some other kind of reason that affects, moving forward, I move forward immediately. Mm-hmm. I waste no time. And I know that doesn't apply everywhere, whether it's, trying to look into, is your idea a good idea? Mm-hmm. And so for the clocks, my strategy initially was, We got to figure out what the price point is. Is there a market? You got to think about everything at the same time.
Right.
How do we manufacture? Is there customers? Is there profit margin?
Did you write this data down somewhere for you to refer back to? Did you put it on an Excel spreadsheet? Like, a little more.
Oh, I wasn't that slick. No,
Okay.
I was not.
So look, you don't even need to have anything. You just need to have your mind.
I knew when I learned what keystone pricing was. And then I realized keystone pricing is not the same definition for everybody. As an example, I tried to put my clocks into, there's a casino in Laughlin that has a car museum. I went there to talk to them about putting the clocks in there, thinking that they got people coming in for cars. We could put some car clocks in here that could work. Their requirement was keystone ×3. So whatever they paid for the clock, they needed to make 3.5% on their whatever that number was. They had to multiply it 3.5 to pay for the square footage of the area. So that killed the deal. It's we're going to sell a clock for $500 here, I guess, or whatever. So their requirement was so high, but most places aren't like that. Most places are double, or some places are triple, or 2.5 or whatever. So you got to figure out what the numbers are. If you got a product, you know what your cost of making it is, and you know what your margin is, and then you just keep on, and I give the vendors a pretty solid number, so I don't really have trouble getting vendors.
Which is excellent, because then they're being your sales team. They're being your sales army, and you don't have to worry as much about the sales, because you have vendors who are doing it for you.
I know that they're financially driven guys, and they want to sell as much as they can. I will say that I've been pretty active with creating new clocks. And sometimes when I create a new clock, and I got a ton of time, a ton of investment into these new clocks. And then, of course, once we get it through the approval process with all the licensees, and then we have to invest in the inventory, and then get it on my website and all those things. And then I release it out to the vendors. Probably the most frustrating thing is that sometimes they don't put it up. And there's no rule that says they have to. They sell whatever they want to. So that has been a little bit of a thing that I've been working on. And what I did was, to counteract that, was I created my own retail website. And so that if they won't sell it, well, I don't sell on any of the platforms they do, but we have been, we're just starting to get a little active with driving traffic to the website. And because I have literally every clock available that is out there is on my website. And it does actually make sense for the vendors. Like, I have some vendors that are Corvette only, right? Or they're gas and oil only, or various niches. So, and I never put a rule out there that says you got to have everything. That wouldn't work.
Right.
The only rule
and that's
I
why
have...
you can have multiple vendors, because you have the vendor that is just the Corvette, the only Oldsmobile.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just got to find a vendor that's willing to take it all on. That's all it is. And really the driving the business to my own website has kind of been an interesting lesson, because I got no experience with that, really. I rely on a lot of smart people around me to kind of get me through it. And I've also run into a couple of folks that are just looking for a payday, and I know that's everywhere.
And unfortunately, sometimes you don't know until
you find out the hard way, right? So I've had a couple of those. That's okay. It's just part of the experience. So I do have a core of people that I trust. I rely heavily on their advice if it's something I don't know anything about, and that gets me through the crazy stuff sometimes. So
your 2 suggestions then is to just do it. Basically, do the Nike slogan, and if you have an idea, go for it.
Start,
but find your team is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely,
also.
Find people that you can rely on, and that they do what they say they're going to do. And because I am, and if somebody says something to you, and the first clue is the minute that, especially early in a relationship, a business relationship, like, okay, well, you said you were going to hit this deadline and you didn't.
So annoying.
Yeah, that's kind of the end of it right there.
Yep. 100%. Unless, you told me a day beforehand, because of XYZ.
Yes.
We're it's the communication factor. I completely agree.
So I'm not crazy with you. You got to hit, but communication, but then there's other times where it's just a total fail and they did nothing to kind of
Because things happen, supply chain issue. There's things beyond
Absolutely.
control, but when you have that communication, then you're building that trust. But
Absolutely.
if you can't have that communication, you have no trust completely.
So I'd say just get up and be active, do stuff, and try stuff. You never know what's going to work, and you never know what's going to work, and a lot of stuff doesn't. But when you find something that does, that's a good day.
Definitely. And do something that's making you happy. Because every time I'm around you, you seem happy. And so it sounds like you got to do something that, even if it's hard work, you enjoy it, right?
I like this. Yeah. It's, I would rather do this and not succeed at the level I want versus hitting a time clock. This is way better. Yeah. I mean, it's stressful sometimes, especially in the slow season. Like, when is this ever going to pick up again?
So we can go on to Amazon potentially, but better yet, usclock.net. Where else can people go?
So usclock.net is my...
US Clock and Sign, I knew that.
Yeah, it's US Clock and Sign for my retail. And usclock.net is for my wholesale customers and business customers that want to order custom stuff. And we separated them because once we had the retail site, it's like, the advice I got from my web guy was like, listen, man, this website's got 18 years worth of history. I don't want to close it off. Mm-hmm. I realized, but to upgrade it to something that would work, it would end up being a new website anyway. Right. So let's consider just starting a new website. Yeah. So we made that one wholesale and the new one retail.
I think that's a great idea. It simplifies things so you can send consumers to usclockandsign.com.
Exactly.
But then, the vendors and people who want to do more of the bulk, right? Then they'd go to usclock.net, correct?
Exactly. There's a password protected area where they go in and they find the clock that they've sold and they order it.
Perfect.
And then we fill the order. And we process orders. We're shipping out Monday through Friday daily. And you have to because Amazon, eBay, they all require tracking immediately. So everything's in stock. We produce tracking instantly, just about. But by the next day, the same day or the next day, there's tracking. Really, all that was worked out well because of my manufacturing in time. I didn't plan it out that way; it just worked out that way. It worked out that everything we just able to turn orders quickly. So it just kind of played out good. So.
Awesome. Where else can people find you? What other social platforms are you on? I know we're going to have tons of links on our descriptions and pages and things. But
we have Instagram. We also are on Facebook. Probably soon we're going to maybe try TikTok just to see.
Okay. You're on YouTube. I know that.
We have some stuff on YouTube. Yes. I think our TikTok, we got a lot of ideas on TikTok. Well, I don't know.
There's lots of things we can do. I think we're going to have a side conversation too about things you can do.
Yeah. I think TikTok will be interesting. We just need to just keep pushing sales and stuff. And I think that everything we're doing is working. I mean, if something doesn't work, we get rid of it, right?
Right. But you don't know until you try. And I think that's the key as a business owner, as an innovator, as a creator. You don't know until you try sometimes,
Absolutely right. We made some clocks for the National Rifle Association. Mm-hmm. We're in their catalog that they sell at their fundraising events. And I think I've been in that catalog for, 12, 13 years.
They have money, so
Yeah. We made a unique clock for every state for them.
Okay.
And we released that just before COVID hit. So from January.
Did you have like the patents or something like that? Or
we have patent clocks too.
Yeah, I love those. I don't know why. Something about patent designs to me just looks so cool.
The patent clocks are, the cool thing about patent clocks is that a patent is a public document and that you don't need any licensing. It's a public document. You can use it any way you want. So using it in a clock is a completely legit process that nobody can have a complaint about. By putting gun patents in the clocks, that was my first dab into the NRA stuff. Yeah. And it worked. I mean,
it looked so cool. Like, I'm also like, I'm totally not a gun person. Like, I hate guns. If you want to hunt, go hunt. I'm not around. But those, I was just like, that's so cool to see. Because you just see all the intricacies of like,
they were very popular.
It's so cool looking.
Before COVID, that January, I had released a unique clock for every state. Mm-hmm. And in the kind of art, and then below it said, this state supports the Second Amendment. And those clocks were killing it with the NRA. That every state was ordering their version of it. And then
it's like the quarters, and everyone had the quarters.
Oh, it is very much like that.
Yeah, everyone was so about it. Had to get the map and put your little quarter in each until you needed money, and then you pop it on.
so they were killing it, and then COVID hit, and then so now I had all this inventory, and we just let it sit there. I didn't do anything with it. Nobody else was going to buy it. It didn't say NRA, but nobody else.
Yeah.
And then finally, NRA comes back. It took a couple of years, and now all that inventory, we've sold it and replenished.
Lovely.
And so they're back to selling it. But again, that's one of those circumstances where you got to make the phone call.
Yeah.
And you get them on the phone. Hey, I make this, and it might do really well in your catalog. Are you guys be interested in, and then that conversation led to, oh yeah, well, we fundraise and do a bunch of stuff. And then that was like, at that time I only had car stuff. And he said, well, maybe if you can change these things up and put something else in it, maybe it would appeal to our customers a little better. So we started playing around with those ideas. And yeah, it turned it into kind of from a lukewarm winner to like, yeah, this works.
Nice.
And now I've been in there a long time, and they sell a lot of clocks, and I get orders from them. Every week I got orders coming in. But yeah, you just got to hang in there. And so, yeah, COVID hit us pretty good, but we started to do new things. Mm-hmm. We started to do personalized clocks.
Open signs.
Yes, the signs came in from a COVID response. We need to try something else. So if you want to get different results, you got to try something different, right?
Yeah.
Which is part of the logic of why I'm here today.
There we go. Well, honestly, this was such a pleasure. I definitely think that everyone can see the beautiful signs. They can't see the clocks. I don't want them to see the times changing, but you can definitely take a look at the clocks. Go to usclockandsign.com. Upload your family photos and have a beautiful photo clock in your living room.
Absolutely.
There's so many opportunities. And I think the one thing I'm really taking away from our conversation is the power of the ask.
You're
going to miss every shot you don't take.
Absolutely.
It's going to be an instant no if you don't ask.
Yeah, that's right.
So just ask. So thank you so much, Danny, for
coming
in today. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Thank you for listening to Tales with Taylor. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and share with someone you think could benefit from these tales.